So lots of people who are new to Elementor struggle to create layouts, and to explain to you guys how you can make any layout, I'm just going to show you 3 layouts, which are these 3. And even though this looks simple, it is actually very simple, and once you understand how the layouts are made, you will be able to make any single layout. So how about we just get started with a layout 1. So here's how we can think of this one. So you can see that we can divide this one into 2 layouts. So this is one like this, and this is the second one like this. And once we know, we can just make the 2 sections like this. So how about we just make them quickly. Let's remove this. So we know this is 1 and this is 2, so let's just make 2 by 2 like this. I like to give like padding on top, like 100 padding and 100 at bottom. It is this one is like personal choice, but you don't have to follow. And now that we know that we have created 2 of this stuff, all we need is, if I go inside this and then let's say remove this one, we can see that we have two inside of this going top to bottom. So all I'll do is, inside of this container, I'll just add another container like this and then duplicate this one in the bottom ones. Oh, sorry, not the bottom one, the inside one. And that way you could see we have already got this layout, but it is not looking same, right? So let me just make this a bit bigger. I'll make this like 1500 pixels. I'll add some color so that we can see what we are doing. So let's make this red. Let's copy this one and then paste style for this one. And this is the background one, so I'll make this like a blacker color. Slide black like this. And I'll copy this one to this color too. And you can see this is something how it looks, but we want some spacing around here. So I'll just add a gap between those in column, and I'll also add in row in case. And you can see we have already gotten the similar layout, which is like 2 columns and 2 rows inside of first one. And all we need simply to do is, give it height. So let's say if I give it, let's say 500 height, and I can just make the top top container have grow. And what grow does is it actually tries to fill up the whatever space there is. And I can make this one to grow too, so that they're equal. And again, if you don't want to do grow, it is completely personal choice. You could also like remove this one and whatever content you add in this one. So let's say if I add like a text and all, it will automatically do it to that size. And that is one way to do it. But for time being, let's just make this 500, make this grow, and make this, let's say, grow. And you can see we have gotten the similar layout. You can see it is 2 columns and then 2 rows inside of this. Even though this looks better, all we simply need to do is give this like the same spacing. I'll just keep this like 10 and then remove this spacing like this. But now you can see that there's some spacing around here from this color, and that is because Elementor adds like 10 padding by default. So if I make this 0, you can see we got the same thing, but the space around here is again weird. So just choose the container, and here you could see that I cannot choose the container because we added the padding, right? So you can see I cannot choose this container because these two are overlapping. Because if I remove this one, it's hard to select. So I'll just select it from my navigator, which is from here. And all I'm simply going to do is make this 10. Oops, not in this one, this one. And here you could see we got the same spacing. So 10, 10. And all we simply did was created 2 containers. So let me show you how fast I can make this. So if I go and make this into 2, make this into 1500 pixels, I'll give this some like 100 padding, 100 padding, and this is like personal choice. Make this, let's say, 500, like this also 500. Inside of this one, I'll add another container, and I'll make sure this is like going from top to bottom. I'll just give this like a color so that we can see it. Give this grow, duplicate this one, remove this padding, make this 10. This one also, let's make this have like 10. And that's all we needed to do. And that's how quickly you could just make this layout. How about we go to the second layout now? Now we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, just do the same thing, divided by 3. So if I go into this stuff, you can see that this is like the first column, second column, third column. And this is the similar stuff that we did above. You can see that we just have 2 extra columns around here, and this one has top to bottom. So let me quickly show you how we can do. So we will do the same step, but instead of this one being box, we have chosen to go full width. So let's just create a single column and make this full width. I'll give this like padding top. I'm not going to give padding on left and right because we want it to like reach the end, and we don't want anything to have anything to be on the left and right basically. Inside of this, I'll add one container, make this full width, and let's duplicate it 3 times because we need 3 boxes, right? So we got 3 boxes, like we have selected 1, 2, 3. In this container, we will just make it go left to right because we want this to be left to right, like this. Next, we remember that we want 2 rows inside of this. So all we simply need to do is add another container inside of this one, and make sure this one has column vertical, so that we want this the inside containers to go from top to bottom. And let's duplicate it, and let me just color it so that we can see it better. Let's delete this, let's duplicate this, and you can see we have already gotten the layout, similar layout, that is 2 rows inside of this and 1 column. So you can see 1 column and 2 rows. Now all we simply need to do is right now it is 20 pixels spacing, but in this one I've used 10 pixels, but you could see that everywhere it's 20 pixels, and this one has actually more. For example, if I let's say add a color to this one, let's add like a green color, you can see that spacing feels a bit more around here, and that's one simple reason for it. You can see the spacing around here, and that is because this one added like an extra 10 padding. So you can see that actually there's 20 pixels spacing perfectly, but because this added like a 10 padding, it added extra spacing. So now if I make this 0, this is how it looks. And then simply we just need to have or add some sizing like this. Let's keep this grow and grow. And again, you don't really need to do grow always. It just, if you add content inside of this, it might just make the size perfectly whatever you want it to be. And you can see this is how it looks. We got the same layout, but this is a bit bigger, right? So what we are simply going to do is, if I go into this container, which is the main one, you can see we have added 3, which are like the 3 columns, and they are going from left to right. You can see from here. All I'm simply going to do is in this one, I want this to be, let's say 30 size, or let's say 40%. I want this one to be also 40%. Well, if I do 40, I only have 20 for this. So how about we have to make sure these 3 containers have 100%. And so let's just make this one have, let's say 60%. Make this one 20 and make this one 20. It still doesn't look good because this one being 60, I didn't add 20. Okay, there we go. And now this is how it looks, and we are basically going to play around with values until we find something that works. So right now I did 50. I'll make this 25 and make this like 25, and this is how it looks. This is the layout that we get. But you can see in this one looks nice and centered, right? This one looks weirder because this container is 25 and this container is 25 and this is 50. It is actually in center, it's just giving a slight illusion because of colors. So that's not an issue. And all we basically did was change the gap to like 10 padding everywhere. So like 10, and inside of this we made it 10. And here you could see we got this layout done. I can simply remove the padding too, like this. Here we can give like an height that we want it to be. So let's say if I want, let's say 100 VH, so it is the height of the screen. We can do that too, and that's pretty easy to make. So you understood how we did. We are simply dividing it by columns and then adding rows inside of this. Now this looks a bit complex, right? So how about I divide it even more? So if I go and do this again, I can simply divide this into two containers. So one and then two containers like this. You can see inside of this we actually have two rows. So if I choose color, I'll need to, okay, I haven't used this app a lot, so just understand that a bit. So you can see we added two columns, and inside of this we will add two rows like this. Maybe different color would have been good, like this. We will add like two columns, two rows inside of the first column, and inside of this we have three columns like this. This one has two columns, so it looks confusing, but all you need to do is divide it by rows and columns, and it's pretty easy to do once you understand how this works. It's just dividing stuff. So all we need to do is add two columns, right? And let's say this one is like 60 and this one is 40%. So let's add like a column. You could use like what you call this predetermined columns, but I like to have a habit of creating it myself lots of the time. Usually I just use like this one, this second one. I rarely use the other ones. I've only used like this one. So let me just create this one, make this 1500 pixels. Let's add some padding, 10 padding on the left and right. Inside of this, we know that we want two columns, right? So I'll just make this full width, duplicate this one. Let me just add a color to this ones. Duplicated it. I want this to go from left to right like this. So now we got first column and second column. Inside of this, we know that this is the first column. So how about we just make this be, this one is bigger. So let's make it like 55, I guess, and make this like 45. Looks good to me. I'm just eyeballing the sizes, but you can just play around with values until you find the one that you like. Now inside of the first one, we have two rows. So you know what we need to do? We just need to add two rows. So let me add a color like this. And if I duplicate this one, it automatically gets to the second one because by default it uses this column vertical. And inside of the first one, we have three columns. So again, all we simply need to do is add three columns. So if I go around here, add, let's say, this color, I duplicate this ones, and in the green one I just make it go from left to right. So you see how we got that three columns. I can simply just copy this container and paste it inside of this one like this, and then let's duplicate it, make this one also go from left to right, and in this one I'll simply make sure these all are set to full width. I totally forgot to do that. So let's just copy and paste style so that it's faster to do. So now all of them have like full width, and here we can play around with values until we find something that we like, something like this. And again, it looks a bit weird because we haven't added any content inside of this, but basically if I just add some sizing, so if I add, let's say, 300 or maybe 250, and then like 250 or whatever, what did I use around here? Okay, whatever. And here you could see this is the same thing that we got, but it doesn't look the same, right? Because everything has a padding inside of this. So remove the padding, like this, and then remove the padding for this one, and this is how it looks. And remember that the less container you use, it's better for speed, because more container it has to load more stuff. And here you could see this is how it looks. Now obviously one thing is we have set this to 100, so by default it is using 33.3. so if I just make this like 33.3 because 100 divided by 3, and then make this like whatever is 70 minus 33.3, how much is that? And my math skills have gone worse. So it is 66.7. A bit like this. I can eyeball it if I want to, like this. So like 67.5. And here you could see we got that same layout around here. Let's see what I used around here. I used 67.7 and here I used 33.3. And here you could see how this works. And here you could create any container by simply dividing it in like columns and rows. So every time you want to add let's say a column, you need to create one like this and basically choose a row for this one, so that your containers are aligned from left to right like this, and basically you are creating columns, you see, like this. And whenever you want to create rows, all you need to select is column vertical like this, and then add anything that you want inside of this, and then you got rows. And simply you could see that it automatically stretches it to whatever size it is. And I'm going to quickly show you what wrap does. So let's say if I create a container like this, and inside of this I'll make this 1500 pixels, and then add another container, make this full width. Let's say I duplicated this one and duplicated this one. Let's add, let's say 300 pixels. Oh sorry, let's do like 150 only. Let's just remove the first and second for time being. I'll add a color so that we can visualize it better. Okay, let's do blue. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one and then duplicate this one and make it go left to right. Now you can see that it automatically does is it takes you left to right, and if I keep duplicating it, it will keep creating more and more. But sometimes you don't really need to do that, not really, but sometimes you have some specific requirement that does not work better with this, for example adding like features and stuff. So what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to select wrap around here, and you'll understand it once I do this. So you can see if I wrap it, it automatically took it to the next section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my first container and give it, let's say 48 pixels. Make this 48 pixels and make this 50 pixels, something like this. And you can see what it automatically did. By default, if we don't use wrap, so if we don't use wrap, what it does, it tries to force it to have like to stay it in the one container only. But if I do wrap, which is this one, it tries to maintain the size which is specified around here. So this one will always be 48%, and this one will always be 48%, and this one will always be 50%. And if you don't understand what it does, if I go into my wave page, let's go into my inspect, and then here you could see that if I go smaller, it's going to wrap it to the next section. Now this one is not like a best example, so let me just show you a better one. So let's say if I duplicate it again, and this one is 50%, no, this one is like 55%, and this one is 50%. So why is it not being around here? Simply because the size of this is way bigger to fit in this specified stuff, which is 1500 pixels, and this one is too bigger. So let's say if I drag and drop around, let's say if I was in Photoshop or some software editing, image editing software, and if I just remove this rectangle text and place it around here, this would go above this, beside this area, so it would go up outside this 1500 pixels. So it tries to see that if this cannot fit inside this container, it will just take it to the next section. And what this allows you to do is, here it's 55, if I go lower, and you can see that even though I've gone to 45, it's not going there, simply because we have something called gap. So if I remove the gap, it will go there, but because there is a gap, it's not able to have the space around here, and by default there's 20 pixel space. So I'll just go a bit below like this, and you could see that it is now automatically coming to this side because there is enough space for me to or enough space for this rectangle to fit around here. And if I just make this even smaller, let's say I make this to, let's say 30, and then duplicate another one, you could see it is actually taking that space. But again, it looks bit uglier, right? Because there's some space around here like this. And the best part is that you could actually choose like different options. So if you want to have like no wrap around here, you could do no wrap and then wrap around here. So it's your choice, but let me show you what I mean by having this ugly space. Right now you could see that there's that ugly space, and then it just stays around there like that. It doesn't look good, doesn't look nice. So what you can simply do is, in every single one we can just add grow like this, grow, and then grow, and then grow like this, so that it will automatically try to fit anything that is, or any space that is around here. So if I just duplicate this one, you could see that even though this is only set to 30%, it is taking the whole space. If I remove the grow, it will only take 30%. And that way you could actually create like the bento grid. I've already have a tutorial on bento grid, but this allows you to create even unique featured layouts. So if you have 3x3 layouts, or sometimes if you, rather than creating, let's say if I had something like this. So right now I have like this 3x3, and then I set it to like no wrap. And if I create a duplicate, and let's say you have 6 features to showcase around here. So feature 1, feature 2, feature 3 like this. Let's duplicate this one. Right now this would look normal, but if I go into my tablet portrait, and let's say this looks way too small for my featured post. So what I do is I go into my this stuff, make this 50%, and then make this 50%. But now the third image is just disappeared. So I do is I create wrap option like this, but now this creates this weird look, right? Because there's grow. If I remove grow, I have to set it to none. Okay, obviously we cannot use like 50%. We have to go like a bit smaller. And here you could see we created this feature section which is 3x3, but now I cannot add a text around here, and my feature sections are around here. So if I, let's say, duplicate this one, you see how ugly this looks. I had 6 feature sections, but this space looks empty, which is why I use this method. When we have like 6 featured or something stuff like that, you just simply switch this to like wrap like this, and then add like grow to every single one. And now all you simply need to do is duplicate it like this. And if I remove the grow option from here, and then remove the grow option from, let's say, here, it would still allow me to do like 3, it would still be in one order like this. And you will need to play around with values until you find like the right solution. So just make sure you could just keep this grow like this. And what you could do is you could duplicate one and then keep this one like, say, empty like this. So rather than changing stuff, you could just create an empty container, and that way it would be in order. You could see now we don't have that empty space if we do like 2x2. And that's all. I think I have made this tutorial way longer than it needs to be, but I hope you understood a bit. And if you didn't, or if you have any specific layout that you want me to create, you could just link the URL in the description. I'll check that layout. You could even add a link to an image, and then I'll try to create that or recreate that layout. So yeah, thanks for watching.